Welcome to the Darkside Podcast.
There are thousands of videos on YouTube about giants, about the Nephilim. A lot of myth and mythology and facts sort of all intertwined together, where we have to try to decipher the truth out of the whole mix, the whole soup of everything that's being presented. The easiest way to hide the truth is to insert a lie, a convincing lie. As for giants, I'm trying to find some type of proof that giants exist, and not talking about mythology, Gomorrah, and all these giants that are even in the Bible and Goliath and whatnot. I want to try to find some news articles, like, for example, even though I don't exactly trust everything that the media says, the New York Times, way back in 1882, there was something that was published on May 25th. The bones of a giant found, and it was in St. Paul, Minnesota. A skull of heroic size and singular formation has been discovered among the willows of the mound boulders in Red River Valley. The mound there was 60 foot in diameter and 18 feet high. Near the center were found the bones of about a dozen of men, women, mixed with bones of various animals. The skull in question was the only perfect one, and near it were found some abnormally large body bones. The man who bore it was definitely a giant. A thorough investigation of the mound and the contents will be made by the Historical Society. And this was the New York Times, published May 25th, 1882. Let's get right into another article, once again by the New York Times, published May 4th, 1908. So it says, giants, skeletons found. So a cave in Mexico, guys, get this, gives up the bones of an ancient race. This is special to the New York Times, right? This is written in an article in 1908, because back in the days, the 1800s, probably even the 1700s, 1600s, I can only imagine the further we go back, especially in the 1900s, lots of proof that we're seeing here, that they're talking about giants. They're talking about different races. But aside from the race or what they think it is, seeing for your own eyes a real giant skeleton would say everything. You would not need an explanation with the bloody skull to understand that the people that were here before us were far larger than us, either a different race, or we've become smaller. This brings up a whole lot of interesting fields and ideas and theories about this. But as for proof, they exist, guys, in different countries. So if they do exist in different countries, why is this omitted in most of ancient scriptures? Now, I know you're going to tell me some scriptures actually talk about giant races. Yes, but that's just a story, right? Until we see proof. And now, digging up these mounds and finding actual giants buried underneath the mounds is evidence. It's proof in itself. Get this, Boston, May 3rd, as I said, 1908. They say Charles C. Clapp, who has recently returned from Mexico, where he has been in charge of Thomas W. Lawson's mining interests. So this is somebody that was interested in mining that ends up with a story about giants. Makes sense, right? He has called the attention of Professor Apices to a remarkable discovery by him. He found in Mexico a cave containing some 200 skeletons of men, each, and I repeat, each of them were above 8 feet in height. The cave was evidently the burial place of a race of giants, descendant from the Aztecs, they say. So again, this information that they added there saying descendants of the Aztecs, don't take that for credible, even if it might be. Just take the facts in all of this there's giants and giant skulls that are being found. Now, we're not talking about other things like alien skulls or elongated skulls. And even in the U.S., in some of the states that you're all living right now, they found giant skull heads. Maybe the pyramids were made by giant people. We see in an area of the world a giant palace with stairs 20, 30 feet high, and it doesn't make any sense. Like, obviously, no one's walking up those stairs. Why would they make things so big? Why in Egypt were things so big? Were they depicting everyone so tall, like giants? Maybe they possibly were giants. Stonehenge. Do you know what the original name of Stonehenge is? The Giant's Circle. Maybe the humans, the smaller humans, if we're not necessarily from the giants, would make these large places and palaces or gathering areas where the giants from inner Earth or inside of Earth or from elsewhere, another planet, we can go on for hours, maybe they were made for places of meeting between different races, between the giants and between the humans. Maybe an interaction. Maybe, have they ever gotten along at one point? Could you imagine giants on Earth getting along with humans, helping them or not? Like, all the stories of everyone telling us that everyone and everything happened was so evil. Was there any beauty happening, you think? So parts of the omitted story is from the Book of Enoch. They talk all about the giants, the Nephilim, alien beings. But here's the problem that I have. Everyone's saying that if we are from the Anunnaki or from another race, right, the fallen angels could or would have come down, had children, right, with the human race, and would have developed, out of that would have come the Nephilim giants. Now, would it not be the opposite, right, where the giants already existed here, and then smaller people arrived to take over the planet, which could be an alien race, maybe the humans, us, taking over a race of giants, thus leaving all these giant temples with massive construction. Listen, guys, there are granite walls in a certain country that were built that are like thousands of tons, these rocks that were placed there thousands of years ago. So I'm not going to change my ideal that the ancient cultures were far more advanced than us. And they have the best way of hiding all this truth in a very easy way. Quite simply, like I said, the truth, you add a little bit of a lie into that, and or both, by omitting a part of the truth, everyone's confused. So obviously the first cataclysmic event time here on Earth would have happened with giants, not with human race. As to why the giants have become small or the small have become large, or that we're both unique, different races from different galaxies of planets, and I mean, you get it, right? We can go into, and it's not into many fields, and it's not for nothing why they bring up alien races. We're not even talking about elongated skulls. I think it's something even more fascinating, the fact that giants, we're talking double, triple, quadruple our size, which we know it's impossible. How is a giant going to come out of a human, a regular, small, short person? You could say, well, look at Andre the Giant. Yeah, it's true. Andre the Giant came out, a baby, must have been a hell of a big baby, but still was a baby, and then grew up to an enormous size that was far taller than the normal, regular human being. Andre the Giant, very popular, when it passed away recently, wrestler. So giants, we see them today. We see people at 8 feet, I think 8 feet and something, or 7 feet and something, 8, 9 feet. It's rare, but we can still see it. But we're not talking about just 9 feet. We're talking about like 11 feet, like 22 feet, 30 feet, massive sizes. Even the finger that they found, apparently even the x-ray came with it. It would have been a finger found from a giant. And this guy is missing, by the way. Turned up Either he's dead or he disappeared, and he has the images, and that's all that's left now is the image of a giant finger and fingernail from someone that was 14 feet. Now, this finger is like 6 feet long. It's crazy. So filling in the timeline, one hell of a gap. We go from having giants here confirmed. Let's just say what we know is a fact. Giants inside of the ground, a giant race that was living here. So now, all of a sudden, we add the humans to that. You know, what's the in-between? What is the in-between of that? We're obviously from elsewhere. We landed here. We're sent here, deliberately came here. Maybe we fled our planet to come here to Earth, and thousands of years after we would have evolved, we would have found giants? No, that wouldn't make any sense, because first of all, if we were able to get here from another freaking planet, we would be very evolved, and we would have known right away that there were giants buried in the ground, right? I'm assuming this because intelligent races would know these things, right? But then again, that's just an assumption. Landing here, maybe we're prisoners from another planet, or we had to break away from the planet that was dying ourselves, and we wind up here, living here for thousands of years, and finding out that there are also giants buried underneath us. It's quite one hell of a story, right? Now, all these stories of aliens having come here and that we come from aliens, I would highly believe, honestly, very much believe that we are alien descendant. But don't forget, alien quite simply means something that is alien to us. So to this planet, maybe we are aliens to this planet, or maybe we're not. And I tend to think it's something we're probably never ever going to find out. I think the more information that we find, and the more we find out that there were civilization after empire after empire after empire all the time here, dynasties, all these things created, there's always a cataclysmic event. And I tend to think that it might be always deliberate. When the people get too strong, in numbers, when we grow, we evolve, we get smarter, we have our own ideas. These governments, over these thousands of years of periods of time that have controlled and enslaved the human race, they always finish by being conquered by the people. The people always seem to wake up. It takes thousands of years, you might say, but they still know. And sometimes maybe it's just at that last minute that they get the strength to speak out. And maybe it's always when something's about to happen. They know. Designing the perfect, obedient race. Can it be done with physical beings? Or does one need a robot? There's talk of Native Americans having to fight giants. And that would explain the massive megalithic objects that we see, right? In South Badbek, Lebanon, there's a stone that weighs a staggering 1,242 tons. It was brought there. The existence of giants could certainly explain all the megalithic structures that we're seeing around the world. Obviously, the giant stones. Mount Sharia in southern Siberia, researchers found an absolutely massive granite stone wall. Gigantic stones estimated to weigh over 3,000 tons, double the weight of those in Lebanon found. In Celtic mythology, we hear about giants. That's a fact. Also in Greek, Roman mythology, Hindus, Buddhists, Norse, and even Japanese Shinto folklore. In the 1500s, when Spanish explorers were exploring the coast of the Americas, sightings of giants were also declared. These captains of these ships had reported taller than average native people on their expeditions, along with other people on the expedition that notably noticed and were witnesses. Captain John Smith writes, get this, the Sasquatchanuks, just the Sasqua, right? Like Sasquatch. So the Sasquatch are a giant-like people. They measured the calf of the largest man's leg and found in 3/4 of a yard about, and all the rest of his limbs were in proportion. This was written by Captain John Smith. In 1519, we have a Spanish explorer, Alonso Alvarez de Pineda. He was mapping the whole coastline of the Gulf, right? Rivers, bays, landmarks, and potential ports to document the maps. Where the river empties into the Gulf of Mexico, he found a large town, near it 40 native villages. And get this, he describes seeing many giants living in this village with a race of tiny pygmies. So now it's sort of getting exciting because you hear about these little gnome or troll-like people that are tiny. I'm not talking about my trolls, but the trolls that are so small of a race that they would be the size of a shoe or maybe even smaller. Now that, we don't have the proof of it. We don't have pictures of everything. We have the proof that there are really giants there. We know today pygmies and small races of people that are very small people, dwarves, midgets. There's many different sizes of people living right now and since hundreds of years that we know of, for sure documented. So we can easily theorize and even assume through facts, partly facts, that in the past, in ancient times, there must have been a great wide variation of different types of humans. Could that be different types of humans? So that we see an intelligent race on the planet, and then it would go from very primitive to very intelligent. Which were the most primitive? The giants, and the small ones were the smart ones, and they were able to get the giant, just like the story of with Goliath, right? So all these stories, if they are stories, where do stories come from? Sometimes from myths, exaggerated stories, folklore. Sometimes it's real stories that happened in the past that become just a myth later on. And look at everything we can go through, right? Like dragons, demons. We're continually debating and fighting over all of this. And the more we find, the less we know. That's the truth. The more we find out, the less we know, because there's always another evidence or another debate over the facts, and the facts are always changing, and the carbon dating is always changing, and they say that the carbon dating's wrong now when we're carbon dating things like the Shroud of Turin and many ancient objects. So it takes a long time for us to actually get to the part where we get to knowing the exact truth.